are, so she is Marilyn Cachola Lucy, Deputy District Director for California District 16, Assemblymember Rebecca Bauer-Kahan's office. Welcome to Livermore Chamber Business Alliance meeting.
Thank
Good
you.
morning.
Good morning, everyone. Would you like me to go ahead and start? Okay.
Yeah, go.
Good morning. Good morning. As she said, I want to just thank everybody at the Livermore Chamber of Commerce. I am apologizing on behalf of Assemblymember Rebecca Bauer-Kahan. She unfortunately is ill, and so you get me this morning. But she's done a lot of great things, and I'm going to share with you some of the legislative successes from last term, and then open up for conversation. So for those of you who don't already know about the Assembly member, she's represented 8016 since 2018. That was the first time she was elected to office. And the district includes La Marinda, Walnut Creek, and the Tri-Valley. She serves on several policy committees where the legislators dig deep into all of the legislation that touches anything on a given topic. This gives our community a seat at the table on important issues. Her committee assignments are banking and finance, environmental safety and toxic materials, privacy and consumer protection, utilities and energy. And she actually founded and chairs the Select Committee on Reproductive Health, which is the first of its kind in the nation. Last year, she had the honor of becoming the chair of the Water, Parks, and Wildlife Committee, which oversees California water and drought issues. And obviously, you all know this issue is very critical to our state and to all of our local communities. So let's talk a little bit about the 2023-2024 budget. The governor proposed it. And again, this budget that's initially proposed by the governor, as many of you already know, is based on a lot of assumptions. We don't know what it's going to look like, but our tax basis is going to look like later in the year. But we are looking at a projected $24 billion budget deficit as of now. Again, the budget is in a much stronger position than it was during our state's last fiscal crisis. And they've done a good job in terms of putting money away when things were going well, and we had a lot of tax income back into the reserves. But everybody obviously is feeling very, very cautious. So through Prop 98, which is the law that guarantees funding for education, California will be investing $108 billion into our kids. That will include $12.5 billion going towards learning recovery and learning loss mitigation. And if you were a parent during COVID, that was a big concern along with our education community. $4 billion ongoing for before and after school and summer programs, $3.6 billion going towards special education programs, and $1.2 billion ongoing funds for universal TK or transitional kindergarten. In the area of water and drought, many of us obviously were relieved by the onslaught of rain that we received earlier this month. Unfortunately, it was a big reminder that we need to update the water infrastructure here in our state. As she chairs the Water, Parks, and Wildlife Committee, this has become one of her main priorities. According to the governor's proposed budget, California will be investing $8.6 billion into our systems, with $3.9 billion going towards drinking water and water supply, $738 million going towards flood protection and control operations, and $1.5 billion going towards immediate drought support. The proposal also includes $202 million in new investments towards our flood infrastructure. On the other side of that coin is wildfire. Wildfire and intense atmospheric rivers are something that we will continue to see as climate change continues. The governor proposed $2.7 billion in funding for community hardening, regional and community investments, forest landscaping, and more. Assembly District 16 has a vibrant and active small business community, and our office frequently hears how hard it is for small business owners to stay afloat. In light of that, this year's budget proposal includes $4.2 billion in small business relief grants, $2.1 billion towards workforce development, and $1.1 billion in small business credit initiatives. Our district office has collaborated with the Livermore Chamber and other local chambers of commerce in the past to share information about state resources to the business communities, and we remain here at your service for any difficulties you are facing regarding state agencies, so please do not hesitate to reach out. California will continue to invest in housing and homelessness with $15.3 billion going to local governments, programs, community care, and more. We know that working on this issue is a priority for many community members. Additionally, we know that housing costs are a big concern for our local employers. We know that many of the people who work in our communities and local businesses can struggle to live in our Tri-Valley communities. The Assembly member is committed to working on affordability, supporting transit efforts like Valley Link to help connect our communities to high-quality transit options, and work with the Bay Area region to find solutions to this problem. The Assembly member has always been a strong voice for fiscal responsibility and smart spending on state programs. She's carried legislation to track the effectiveness of spending in spaces like the criminal justice system to ensure that our tax dollars are well spent and going towards programs with the largest impact and that are effective. Last year was a huge year for the Assembly member and our office legislatively. She carried 17 bills and had 15 of them signed into law. These pieces of legislation were ambitious in scope and made some big changes for our community. The first is AB 988, the Assembly member's landmark piece of legislation. She worked on this in collaboration with Tawn Hall, a constituent, and the mother of Miles Hall, who was killed by the police responding to a call for help when he was in a schizophrenic episode. Mental health is an issue that touches all of our lives. Anyone who has struggled with their mental health or had a loved one struggle with their mental health knows that it can be hard to get the support they need. AB 988 makes some big changes on that front. It creates a true alternative to 911 in a mental health emergency, allowing for mobile crisis response teams to be dispatched to people in need, and it will be fully connected with 911, allowing callers to be routed to the right place in an emergency. We're at the beginning stages of this being rolled out, and 988 is live, and we encourage anyone experiencing suicidal ideation or a mental health crisis to call 988 to talk to a professional. The full mobile crisis response program will be coming in the future. The Assembly member is big on privacy and consumer protections. She carried AB 2089 last year to close a loophole that allowed mental health apps to sell their users' data, so now people will have more privacy and better protections. The Assembly member has also been working on reproductive health care. Last year, she carried 2 bills to protect patients and providers in California from laws in other states that seek to criminalize abortion. AB 1666 protects providers from civil legal actions from out of state, and AB 1242 prohibits California-based tech companies from sharing private user data with out-of-state law enforcement seeking to prosecute abortions. Environment is a huge focus of the Assembly members' work in Sacramento. We can see the impact of climate change through wildfires, drought, and flood, and California must lead the way on climate change. Last year, the legislature passed the California Climate Commitment, a $54 billion investment that will work over the next 2 decades to fight climate change, create green jobs, cut air pollution, reduce our reliance on fossil fuels, and create a better environmental future for generations of Californians to come. She also carried some environmental legislation, including AB 2146, which would have prohibited the non-commercial use of neonicotinoid pesticides. These pesticides are a major contributor to bee and pollinator mortality, which is a serious environmental problem. Unfortunately, the governor vetoed this bill, but the Assembly member will continue to work on this issue. AB 2374, which increases accountability for bad actors who repeatedly illegally dump waste in our communities, was signed into law. This came out of collaboration with Contra Costa and Alameda counties, who were looking for more resources to combat illegal dumping locally. This is a problem especially out on our rural roads here in Livermore. She also carried AB 2805, which streamlines the process for the Regional Conservation Investment Strategy Program, speeding up conservation efforts and habitat protection. We recently had very exciting news of Las Positas being recognized as the best community college in California by intelligent.com. We're lucky to have LPC in our community and as a resource for our people and our community. Our community colleges are incredible resources for people of all walks of life. Last year, the Assembly member carried AB 2627 to help make sure that they have the data they need to support all of our students. This new law improves data sharing between different agencies, which gives community colleges the information they need to better support vulnerable students, including veterans, foster youth, and formerly incarcerated people. Community colleges are for everyone, and all students deserve the support they need to thrive. Last year, she also partnered with the governor on his priority bill package of gun control measures and authored AB 2571, which bans the marketing and advertising of firearms to children. While those under 18 years of age cannot legally purchase a firearm in California, firearm companies have expanded their advertisements to social media platforms and have specifically targeted our youth. Excuse that noise, we hear it in our office every morning. As gun violence is the third leading cause of our death for our California youth, this is unconscionable. Thankfully, AB 2571 is now law in our state. AB 2282 was also signed into law. This legislation equalizes penalties imposed for 3 pervasive and harmful symbols of hate: burning crosses, swastikas, and nooses. It also expands the locations in which these penalties can be applied for using these symbols to terrorize people, such as K-12 schools, colleges, places of employment, and public parks, amongst others. In 2020, racially motivated hate crimes almost doubled. The legislature has worked to provide funding for nonprofit and community organizations who are targeted by hate to improve their security. Our office has worked to help get the word out about these programs to community organizations. One of the most devastating threats that we face here in California due to climate change is wildfire. Assemblymember Bauer-Kahan introduced AB 2083 to help protect utility ratepayers in settlement agreements for wildfire that are caused by utility companies. Currently, when electrical or gas utility companies face fines relating to wildfire convictions, California law forbids the companies from using ratepayer funds to cover those penalties. But there was a loophole that allowed these companies to use ratepayer funds to cover these fines and penalties if a settlement is reached prior to a trial with a county, city, or state. AB 2083 closes this loophole to prevent them from doing so that we as ratepayers should not be on the hook for the devastation that these utility-caused fires leave behind. They certainly need to be held accountable. And so that was a quick overview of last year's legislative efforts. And while I didn't touch on every single piece of legislation the Assembly member carried, more details on all of that are available on her website at a16.asmdc.org under the legislation tab. We are currently at the beginning of the legislative session for 2023. The Assembly member has begun the process of introducing her legislative package for the year, and she'll continue to advance her priorities around environmental protection, gun violence prevention, and reproductive rights, and more this year. So please stay tuned for more details on this year's legislative package. We'll be sharing updates on social media and through our email newsletter. It's going to be another busy and exciting year, and just to put things into context, the 15 bills she passed last year is more than some legislators pass in their entire tenure in the legislature. We want to hear from you along the way. Your voices as constituents and business leaders are incredibly important. So please do not hesitate to reach out if you have any questions or concerns along the way with any legislative issues or budget issues. It's important for our office and the member to get that direct feedback from you. Our district office is always here at your service, and you can connect with us online, again at that website, a16.asmdc.org, or by phone at 925-244-1600. Our team can help assist with issues that crop up relating to state agencies. Over the last 3 years, we've put in an extraordinary amount of work on EDD issues and help people get their unemployment insurance and disability insurance. We're currently receiving questions on the middle class tax refund. So if you know anyone seeking information on that program or the franchise tax board in general, please feel free to point them our way and we'd be happy to help them. Our office also hosts regular events for our community members, and we'd love to connect with you at those events as well. On February 9 at 5:30 p.m., we will be hosting a financial aid workshop with the California Student Aid Commission on Zoom. And we'd love for you to help get the word out to the college age and the college-bound young people in your life, and for the families that are helping to fund them. They can register for the Zoom access information at bit.ly/C4C_Bauer-Kahan. So thank you so much for having me and allowing me to speak on the Assembly members' behalf. And I can turn it over now back to Dawn. Thank you so much.
Thank you, Marilyn. So questions, I see Ken Bradley has his hand up.
I will do my best to ask questions, and if not, we can take them down and get back to you.
On the tax refund from last year, looks like the state is declaring that the return of our money is income, and it's issuing 1099s so that you're going to tax our money from the refund, and the feds are going to tax it, even though was our money to start with. What's up with that?
Well, we've heard a lot of different complaints, to tell you the truth. And looking back, who knows what the legislature would do differently. That issue of being taxed on getting your money back is one of many things that we've heard. Also is are the fees that you have to pay if you wanted to access your money. And we've been able to pass that information back to the budget committee. And they did make some changes to make sure that there are, some, they're not versatillers, I'm showing my age, ATMs that are fee-free. But what we've heard from our constituents, unfortunately, is some of those, they're not plentiful. And so by the time they get to them in an area, the money's out, or, so they have to come back another day. So there are problems with that program. We have passed that commentary back, and we'll have to see what they'll do about it.
Thank you, Marilyn. Let's see. Looking at the group. Does anyone else have any questions? Okay, Laura Calvert.
Good morning. Just a side note, it is kind of nice to be on Zoom, because then I'm looking at the Assemblymember's website and going through her stuff as Marilyn's talking. So yeah, those are some advantages to being able to do this. But thank you for the information, and seriously, congratulations. 15 out of 17 bills being law is an record. I'm looking at the committees she's on and wondering if what the issues are, like the Utilities and Energy Committee is tackling, and how they coincide with the CPUC when it comes to utilities and energy. And then she's on the select committee for improved social and environmental outcomes, which I think should be dovetailing together as well as the nonprofit sector. Spectrum Community Services is a nonprofit. We administer weatherization and LIHEAP and LAWA in Alameda County, and Contra Costa County does it in Contra Costa. We're part of a larger network and very much interested in how the utilities are handling things for lower income families and social justice issues.
Okay, I'll take the first part of that question where you had asked about her and her work with CPUC, I think.
Well,
Is that what you said?
The Utilities and Energy Committee works with the CPUC, or how the CPUC is known as the big,
Right. Well, it hasn't been, I'm going to try to, speak carefully here, but I'm not saying anything that's not already known publicly, but she has been, a strong advocate in terms of consumers and her opinion that the CPUC has a lot to handle, and sometimes they don't handle, what's under their purview as quickly or as well as maybe they should. And that's not, I'm not speaking out of turn there. She said that publicly and on the assembly floor before. What was the other part of your question, Laura? Was what are the utility companies doing for low income?
No, I'm really kind of wondering what that committee is tackling, right? What are their discussions about? What are they focusing on?
Yeah, I don't know the specifics because that will change year to year depending on the bills that come up, but anything that touches, any legislation that touches policy that will involve utilities and energy commission, utility companies, the administration or regulations over utilities will fall under that committee. And so it depends on the year and the legislation that's brought before them.
And Laura, just to be, super clear, we're really early. Hi, I'm Caitlin. I'm one of the Assemblymember staffers, and I'm just popping on to try to help out here. We're really early in the legislative session, and most of the committees have not truly begun meeting yet. As Marilyn said, the committees are there for any legislation that has that touches that at all. Will have to go through that committee. So anything related to utilities and energy goes through the Utilities and Energy Committee. The committee chair might also choose to do informational hearings, which I can go track down some of the website information for that. For example, with the Assembly member now chairing Water, Parks and Wildlife, we're actually hosting a joint informational hearing today with some of the other committees to talk about the flooding and water issues that we saw. So I think that's with the Emergency Services Committee. So it varies, but since you have that, that tie in our community, please reach out to our office. And so then we can, if there's a concern about legislation or just concern about the issue area in general, we can connect you with our colleagues up in the Capitol that staff the Assembly member on that committee to talk about that.
That would be great. And I don't want to take up too much time here, but I was just going to say, during the storms was a great example of, times when utilities are down for consumers all over the state. Internet is down, which also means phone lines. So many people don't have lines anymore. And the legislation around the amount of time that internet providers need to have their generators working to keep internet service up and running is a very short amount of time and really not effective in keeping what really is an essential utility at this point in time up and running for working families and just for emergency services. And so those are areas that I think that California could be doing a better job for consumers, holding them accountable. So thank you for letting me go on.
And Laura, if you have more to say, you can always, reach out to our office and we can have you meet with staff so that you can ask questions and give your position on a variety of issues, so that gets, that informs them when they're looking through legislation and giving feedback as well.
Yeah, thank you. Thank you.
Thank you. David, you have a question?
Yeah. Hi, Katie and Marilyn. Thanks for joining us today. My name is Dave Best. I work for Shea Homes. You guys were talking about energy in the state and the PUC, and just as a note out to the Assemblywoman, that the BIA is working, so the Building Industry Association of the Bay Area has been working with PG&E over the last several months, try to help them get their arms around serving new communities better. They're, PG&E has fallen on their face quite a bit over the years in getting new subdivisions and new home communities up and running with power. So I wasn't sure if she was aware, but she needs any help or wants to reach out to the BIA, the Bay Area. We're deep in it with PG&E, and we'd be happy to, give her some of the benefit of what we've been doing over the several months.
That's great. David, could you put your contact, or I can get your contact information from Dawn later. You're muted.
Yeah, you muted yourself.
Sorry, I'll put my email up here in the chat for you.
Thank you.
Great. Okay. Any other questions? The Assembly members, staff, you guys did great stepping in.
Yeah.
Okay, Marilyn, can you see that in the chat?
Are there any plans in the work to retain businesses, especially small businesses in California? That's a big question. So I can take that question and we can have staff take a look at it and answer it. But I'm assuming you're asking specifically about maybe tax credit programs, tax breaks, things like that. Am I understanding that correctly?
She's chatting in from across the country. So.
Oh, okay. But you're more than welcome to reach out to our office, and we can talk about that and try to find some information for you as the legislative session progresses.
Okay.
Yeah, we last year, thanks to the Chamber for joining us. Last year, we hosted a small business workshop where we brought down some folks from Sacramento, including from the Governor's Office of Business and Innovation and some other programs to kind of talk about grant programs and other resources for small businesses. So some of that landscape may change with the current budget situation, but it's definitely a priority for the Assembly member. Our small businesses are the heart of our community, and it's really important for her to keep them here. Our community would not be the same without them, here in Livermore and across the district. So part of that is, please reach out. We can do some research to see what is still out there and how that might change. And then the other part of it is, please let us know. For our office is really, really helpful to hear from small business owners, from other kind of subject matter experts that are working on this stuff all the time. Like what would it look like for you to feel better supported by the state of California? That's the kind of information that the Assembly member takes and brings that up in discussions with her colleagues. We want to hear from you. It matters a lot. Thank you.
Great. And then she added a little more in the chat there.
Okay. Yeah, I'm taking those notes down.
I saw that.
Just to make it more palatable to businesses.
So Chris has his hand raised.
I had a question about the recent floods. I have a business client that is totally out of, the road is closed to his business, Tesla Road and Corral Hollow Road, and he's got 5 employees. I saw Governor Newsom at the Capitola, which was a much more, public, we've all been there. But anyway, is there funds for, what can he do? He doesn't have business interruption insurance, unfortunately, or anything like that, but he's been out of business for, a month or so because of this. Is there anything he can do or get?
Well, we're actually researching that right now, just because we are having constituents ask us, not just businesses, but also homeowners. And when Biden came out, as of this time, and Katie can correct me, Contra Costa and Alameda have not been included in the counties that have been labeled as, identified counties for FEMA support, I believe. But we are looking into see if there's anything at the county level, if there's anything at the sometimes city level that will be available to help. But we don't have that information yet. And we can reach out and provide that to Dawn once we find anything. I know that Alameda County, and I believe Contra Costa are too, they're sending information to be considered as part of the identified counties to receive funding, but as of now, they are not identified.
And Marilyn, earlier in the mayor's report, he had to roll off for another meeting. Because the city had just issued a emergency declaration in response to the impacts from the storms. And so, which makes it eligible for FEMA funds. And so is this something that Alameda County needs to do as well in order to, allow it to be a little more competitive for those funds or be eligible for that? I mean, are there some steps that we need to take locally to satisfy whatever the federal requirements are in order to be eligible for FEMA funds and other?
I don't know the specific steps. Katie, do you know about this?
Our colleague in the office, our absolutely fabulous case manager in the office, Kathy Cutler, has been following more of this. So we're not the top experts on it, but that is a really good question, Dawn, about, if there are local steps that we need to take. We'll talk with Kathy, and I know she's done some research and has been in some of kind of like the discussions around this. And if we can get a clear answer on that in terms of like, if there's stuff that we need to take to the board of supervisors or, do in the community to do that, that's really important. And we've got our eyes out, some of this like moves slower than one would hope or expect. And so we've got our eyes out as, this kind of stuff comes together, and we'll share that information. It's really important though, and I said this in chat to Chris, if business owners are impacted, if people are impacted, if they can reach out, having that information on hand of who we need to like follow up with to share that is really important for our office's casework abilities. And then we can work with those individuals or those businesses to try to help connect them to resources, connect them to some of our partners. We in the state office primarily can liaise with state agencies. So we, like we said, we do a lot of EDD and franchise tax board stuff. So when things are outside of the purview of state agencies, though, we work with our local and county and federal partners. And so that is stuff that we were in conversations with Congressman Swallow's office and other partners in the area to figure out how best to support our community here.
Okay. Well, let us know how we can support or do what needs to be done on our end here to support and move this along, because we don't want to leave any money on the table if there's some opportunities there.
Okay. I'm not seeing any other questions or comments. Okay, so I think we are gonna wrap it up here. So again, big thank you to Marilyn and Caitlin. You guys did an amazing job. Thanks for stepping in. And hopefully Assemblymember Rebecca Bauer-Kahan gets better. All right, so we are going to finish up here, and a notice our next meeting will